Hi guys, my name is Shane Cuthbert and I'd like to welcome you back. In the next few videos we're nearing closer to halfway through the series, and I just wanted to touch with you a few more ideas in this video. More specifically, I want you to understand that there is always two main elements of a problem. So there's always two particular things that are going on, and I just want to explain that in a little bit more detail. So when you've got a problem, the problem can be anything, but what's going on is as I said, there's two main elements to the problem, and one is obviously the particular situation. Okay, so it's the time and place, it's your thought process at that particular time, and it's basically what specifically is going on in that particular situation. So every situation is going to be different, and each problem is a different situation. There's going to be different hurdles, there's going to be different things to deal with along the way. So let's look firstly at an example of, different situations and how those different situations or environments can affect us. So in this first little clip here, we're looking at somebody that isn't really feeling good about themselves. They're in a poor neighborhood. They've got lots of negative feelings towards that neighborhood. The house is really run down. They're feeling very, very bad about how they're stuck in this situation where, they're not wealthy, they're not making money, they're not really healthy, and they're just feeling stuck, okay? They just feel like they're stuck in this rundown house, in this rundown neighborhood, okay? A low socioeconomic environment. They feel like they can't break out of that situation. He's currently trying to save up some more money so that he and his family can get out of that situation, get out of that place, but it's very difficult, it's very hard, takes time, takes a lot of hard work. So, it's taking, it might take 12 months for him to, save up enough for a deposit to buy a house, or enough money to cover moving costs and rent and bond and all those sorts of things. So it's a process. He has a goal to move. He hasn't yet achieved that goal. He's working towards it. So in the meantime, he's just feeling stuck. He's feeling stressed. He's feeling worried. He's got anxiety. He's got a little bit of depression. He just feels like he's not achieving those goals that he's setting out to obviously do in the long term. So let's just say, for example, he's in this negative neighborhood and he lives next door to these neighbors. And they're a little bit dodgy. They're a little bit loud. They're aggressive, and he sort of sits there every night. He's trying to watch TV, and all he can hear is these neighbours, yelling and fighting all the time. It might be a domestic violence situation, but they're just yelling. They're just negative. The yard's messy. It's unkempt. There's old cars sitting out the front in the driveway, and every day he walks past and he comes home, he has to see that, and every night he has to hear that. Okay, so what's happening then is as that's happening, it's just reminding him of how stuck he is. Okay, it's just reminding him every time he hears them yelling, every time he hears them screaming or fighting or arguing, it's reminding him of how stuck he is in his own life and how he's still where he is, and he can't change that, okay, because he wants to get away from this situation, but he can't. The meaning he's attaching to that situation is, it's making him feel worthless. It's making him feel more depressed, because he's sitting there and he's thinking, I should be doing better. I shouldn't be living here. I should be somewhere else. I haven't achieved my goals. Okay, he's got a lot of negative thinking going on, a lot of negative thoughts. Okay, and he's not dealing with it so well. Okay, he is reminded that he's not going anywhere. He hasn't saved enough money. His children have to listen to that arguing all the time. His children are coming to him asking, hey, Dad, why are these people arguing all the time? Why are they yelling? Why are they screaming? He's got to soothe his family. He's got to soothe his kids and also his wife. He may even have a wife that's constantly questioning him. Are you getting more shifts at work? Are you saving more money? Maybe she's putting added pressure on him to change their situation, to save more money or to do something about it. He's not feeling good enough because he hasn't been able to provide what he sees as being ideal for his family. Okay, he's feeling not good enough, he's feeling worthless because he hasn't been able to protect his children and his partner, and that's fundamentally stressing him out. That's his current situation. So let's take a moment and look at maybe perhaps some of the things that he could be doing to change that situation. Look, he could be doing more hours at work. He could change jobs, and get a better job. That's another thing that takes more time. Maybe that's something that he's not able to do right now. Okay, he may be able to get another job in future. He may be able to get some more hours later on down the track, but at the moment in his current situation, there might not be hours available. There might not be jobs available. That might not be something that he can change actively right now at this moment. Now, again, what he can do is he may be able to go next door. He may be able to knock on the door. He may be able to ask them to keep it down, at night time, or he may be he might be able to persuade them to do that. Chances are that that's unlikely. He may also be able to learn, some persuasive skills. He might be able to learn, how to become more persuasive and improve his communication skills. But that takes time. That's not something he's going to be able to learn overnight. He could call the police every time they have an argument. That could end up causing more trouble for him later on down the track. That might create negative feelings towards him and his family. He might not want to do that. He's going in there and he's risking, potentially obviously getting yelled at or being assaulted by this neighbour. So that's not something that he can change at the moment either. And we've talked about how we cannot sometimes influence or change our environments. Okay, specifically what I'm talking about here is that we can't do it overnight. It takes time. He doesn't have the power to change it right now. We can't change other people. We can't go next door and make our neighbour, no, be quiet. We can ask, but at the end of the day, we have no control or power over that situation. Now, here's something that we can change, and this is the second element of each and every problem that we have. And that is that when we approach that problem, we approach it with a certain way of thinking. Now, changing our way of thinking is definitely something that we do, in fact, have the power to do. Obviously through self-communication, we can tell ourselves things differently. We can look at the problems differently. We can choose to have a different perspective on the problem. And I'd like to share with you an example of that right now. Now, let's go back to the same neighbourhood. In fact, let's have a look at a neighbour that is living on the other side of this problematic neighbour. So he's in the same situation. He's in the same neighbourhood, low socioeconomic neighbourhood. He's got the same neighbour. He can obviously hear, the yelling and screaming every night, and he can hear that sort of stuff going on, or the loud music, or whatever it is. Only he chooses to attach a different feeling and a different way of thinking to that problem. Okay, so, he's like an entrepreneur or a businessman, and he's struggling financially as well. He's feeling the pressure. He obviously wants to get out of the neighbourhood. He wants to create a better life and future for his children and his partner, and he's doing the exact same thing. He has the same goals. He has the same direction where he wants to go, but his thoughts are different, okay? He's thinking differently. He's motivated, he's inspired, he's enthusiastic, he's passionate about, a project that he's working on. He's taking calls, he's on the computer, he's spending all of this extra time at home in the afternoon trying to work on this thing that he's creating. He's in the exact same situation as the first neighbour. He hears all of that stuff going on as well. He sees it going on, but it doesn't mean the same thing to him, okay? So whereas it's reflecting in the first story, it's reflecting and he's internalising it and thinking and feeling like he's stuck and he can't do anything about it. This second guy, I guess he's more distracted. He's thinking, he's got other things going on. He's got different plans. He knows he's not going to be, stuck there for a long time, and he's working towards something. So they're in the exact same situation, yet they're both handling it very differently. They're handling it very differently because their thoughts, okay, with this particular situation are very different. So when you've got a problem, I'd like you to remember that there is always two elements to that problem. There is the particular situation, and there's your way of thinking about that situation. You can't always change the situation or the environment, but you can change your way of thinking about that thing. Okay, you can create a more positive, healthier way of thinking about that thing. And that is something that we do have the power to do. Our thinking is the element of a problem we have the most control over.